We really admire what our wonderful orders, and in particular our Sisters of Loretto, have done for so many years. And then, of course, your brilliant relationship and friendship with Thomas Merton, which has inspired us in multitude of ways, including the creation of our country's first Interfaith Festival of Faith, which theme this year is Sacred Soil, and it will be from November 3rd through the 10th. We feel like the grandparents of it, as do many of you. The one thing I would like to just say quickly, there's an extraordinary collection of speakers that are coming. One man in particular named Martin Palmer, who's coming from England, and he is the head of the Alliance of Religion and Conservation. And Prince Philip got him to begin, or started this with him. Alzie and I had the most amazing call with him on the telephone, having him explain to us why he wanted to come and what his message was. He's launching a food and faith international movement with the UN and many, the information is out here, many other stellar organizations. But you all are why he's doing it. He's doing it because he knows that the religious orders in particular around the globe hold the key to the salvation of our earth. He knows that from history. He cites St. Benedict and what he did in the Dark Ages in the most eloquent terms, and he looks to all of us, and I look to all of us in Kentucky in particular, Indiana, to having us become the center of understanding how religions of all religions are in fact the key to figuring out how to preserve our earth by inspiration of our various faiths. So, thank you.
I would just like to welcome you on behalf of Fons Vitae. It's an Bitter World Spirituality Publishing Press. Because of Tommy O'Callahan. There she is. Here. Would you like her? And when I came to Bellarmine in 1990, Tommy said, do something about the Merton Center. And so here we all are today with our many wonderful projects. And I've been so honored through my association with the Merton Center at Bellarmine and with the Merton Institute, as we now stand, to have published books on Thomas Merton and all the world's faith traditions. We are so honored to bring to you this extraordinary book, not from Gethsemane, although Brother Paul did a lot of the photographs, but from the Sisters of Loretto, who gave the land for the Gethsemane Monastery, in fact. So before introducing you to Mary Swain, one of the two editors of this wonderful book, and some of the beloved Sisters of Loretto, I would like first to thank Nina Bonney, if you would please rise. Made this work possible. Forget the Kentucky Horse Park. Jill Cooper, if you could come up. Jill is the chair of the board. And then we will have the editor and some of these sisters. You will get to meet them yourselves.
The Sisters of Loretto and the Abbey of Gethsemane have been friends and neighbors for a very long time. This book, Hidden in the Same Mystery, these neighbors hidden in the same mystery, are represented in this book by Thomas Merton, Father Lewis, the Trappist monk from Gethsemane, and Sister Mary Lick Tobin, who is also a remarkable person. They found in each other intellectual as well as spiritual soulmates. And the book is a collection of their correspondence and lecture notes from each of them as they address their novices, their postulants, their communities, about things that were really important to them. I just want to highlight a few things. Both Sister Luke and Thomas Merton had a deep, deep conviction that the issues of the day were terribly important and could be and should be integrated with a faith life. So they worked, both of them, and understood one another as they worked for issues of social justice, of nuclear disarmament, civil rights, war and peace. They both thought that prayer life was deeply important in understanding oneself, that we already have that inside us, that which we need. And from this base of strength, they go forth and integrate the outside world and the inside world of faith. It is a book of documents which Sister Luke had, and in 1982 she gave them over to Bonnie Thurston, I believe, and hoped that they would be published one day. And through different starts, they ended up in the hands of the sisters and Fons Vitae. And so this is the final product of Sister Luke's desire that this should be published so that other people could enjoy and understand the importance. They're beautiful, beautiful words about prayer and about social justice. And I think it is the kind of book that should enlighten almost anyone who reads it. It can be read in short spurts or in its entirety, and it would be a great Christmas present for people. So thank you for your interest, and I hope each of you will enjoy the book. It's an important one. Thank you.
Sister Mary Sway.
Mary Lou Tobin was born in 1908 in Colorado, joined the Sisters of Loretto. She was a dancer before that, studied with the Russian dance person, and became a Sister of Loretto and taught, was principal of schools, and then was elected what was then called the Superior General, you know, like not specific, but the General Superior, in 1958. And that's when I came to Loretto. So I came when Luke became Superior General until 1970. Well, that's all through Vatican II. And then she was head of the Leadership Conference of Women Religious, that umbrella group of all the leaders of religious orders of women. And because of that, she got invited to Vatican II as an auditor. Not a speaker because of course she was a woman, but as an auditor. But she took advantage of every opportunity. Cecily can tell us a little more about that. Cecily lived with Luke from 1970 until Luke moved to Loretto in 1999, when Luke was 91. And then Cecily came in 2003, just a few years later. So Cecily had a lot to do with making the book good, and also knows Luke so well. So Cecily, please come here.
My contribution to the book, besides my red penciling as an old-time English teacher, is in the foreword about Luke and Merton. Jim Connor, a Trappist, wrote the foreword about Merton and Luke. And also I have a poem in here. As Mary said, I lived with Luke in Denver from 1970 until I brought her to our mother house in 1999 to retire. And in those days, she was highly involved in peace and social justice work, in ecumenical work, in the women's movement, and in care for the earth and in Central American issues. She often said that while she was president of our order were the years in which she knew Merton. She met Merton in 1960 when he came over to Loretto, as you will read in the book or have read. He came over to Loretto to find a job for his friend Dan Walsh, a professor who had taught him at Columbia, and he needed to find some work for Dan Walsh. So he came over to Loretto and met with Luke, and after that Dan Walsh started teaching at our junior college. That was the story of how they met and how this book, the contents of the book came about. During the years in which I lived with Luke in Denver, we lived in a community of 5 sisters. One was Luke, one was Helen, her successor as president, one was Sarah, an older sister, and Carol and I. And I did a lot of work for Luke as her secretary and her driver and her reminder of when she should go to places. And when she started the Thomas Merton Center in Denver, which was in 1978, she started it 10 years after Merton's death. In the field of ecumenism, as some of you probably know, she worked on the national staff of Church Women United for about 4 years in the early 70s. She was also very involved after the Vatican Council in giving talks to many ecumenical groups, including, for example, the National Meeting of the Disciples of Christ and various other Protestant groups that asked her to come and talk about the Vatican Council. Out in Denver, she became very involved in many interfaith activities and was responsible for helping to found at a Methodist church a dialogue between Christians and Buddhists, which was founded in probably 1995 and which still goes on every Sunday at that church in downtown Denver. She founded it with a Methodist woman minister, a Buddhist professor from Iliff School of Theology, which is a Methodist foundation, and herself. So there are many ways in which she was involved in interfaith and ecumenical activities. I feel very privileged to have had a little part in this book, and I thank you all.
There are a few other Loretto people here. Kathleen Vanderhaar, who's right here.
First of all, Luke would be here if she could.
Yeah.
She's probably here.
She is.
And she would love it, because in her bucket list, she wanted that book published. So, Gray, we thank you. Luke tried, she carried that around, and it was like, we're going to find a way to publish this. This is too good. It's Merton talking, not writing, but talking. And, but it was too skinny. And it got to a point where it wasn't going to work for her, so she passed it on to Rosanette, and Rosanette took on lots of her projects. But Rosanette wanted to be here very much tonight, and so she told me to tell you her regrets, because she really wanted, she too feels the success of this book, and that she carried it for a part of the journey until Bonnie Thurston got a hold of it. And so eventually, you know, this book is here. Rosanette had hoped that it would be out, you know, about 10 years ago, about the time of Luke's Jubilee. And then it was before Luke dies. Oh, here we are today, and the book is reality. And I hope you all enjoy it. Okay.
Mary Fran Lattis, who's sitting here, was on Luke's council from 64 to 70. And that was when the changes happened after Vatican II and all that. So she was very involved with Luke for years. They were close friends. And Cecilia Mesquise is part of Loretto. Many of you in Louisville know her. She was instrumental in getting the St. Benedict's Early Childhood Center going. Worked lots with Bonnie. And Karen Cassidy's a co-member in Loretto. She's going to write Thomas Merton book for children, she said. This has been wonderful. And it wouldn't have happened without you, saying, I love, you know, I emailed her, and she wrote, have you ever emailed Gray? Oh, please. And yes, and she sent it back on the subject line, you know, I tell her about the book. I'd love to publish it, 20 exclamation points. I get manuscripts every day. We have 40 books in the press. Poor Neville and I, all we do from till 11 every night and on weekends is do this stuff. But when this book came through, and I started reading it, and it wasn't long, so I could read along, I started underlining, and it was life-changing. Even to know, through these talks, such as those that Merton gave to the novices, you know, to the at Loretto, that our very work all day long can be a form of prayer. I found the book so sustaining. It's an utter jewel. It's little and adorable, and you may not leave here with buying.